This is the Earth to World Broadcasting Network.
Much like industry pioneers Weston and Randall, our first speaker started his career in multifamily management. From his humble, close-in East Burnside management office, Mr. Brenneke built a small, local property management business into a multi-state leader in the industry. Not to be confused with the chair of the Federal Reserve, Mr. Brenneke is a native Portlander and attended Jesuit High School. He graduated from Portland State University with a degree in economics. Barry started his career with a 10-year stint in banking at First National Bank, which is now Wells Fargo, where he rose through the ranks to become a special assistant to the chief economist. In 1971, he co-founded Guardian Properties with two family members. He developed and operated the apartment management division of the company for 10 years and purchased the company in 1981, renaming it Guardian Management Corporation. Under his direction, Guardian eventually grew to become a regional leader in property management with a 14,000-unit portfolio covering several western states. He sold the business to his son, Tom Brenneke, in 2001, who now operates the company under the name Guardian Real Estate Services. Barry currently manages his personal portfolio of 600 units under the flag GMC Properties and resides on his 150-acre farm in Oregon City with his wife and youngest son. His hobbies include woodworking, restoring and collecting antique tractors, and travel. Barry was a founding member of the Metro Multifamily Housing Association and served on nearly every committee over the past 15 years. I met Barry in the fall of 1990, shortly after I founded my company. He has been a true inspiration to me as a mentor and, most of all, a friend over the past 21 years. It is a true honor for me to introduce one of Portland's multifamily icons, Barry Brenneke.
It indeed is an honor and a privilege to be invited to share some thoughts with you today. I'm going to focus first on some general economic news, locally and nationally. Then we'll have an unusual opportunity to see a timely property management action up close. These are exciting times in the multifamily industry. Not surprisingly, I see a lot of smiling faces and familiar faces in the audience. As the highlight of today's gathering, Metro has assembled a panel of experts who will present a view from their respective corners of the world. Their topics are wide-ranging and critically important if you want to stay ahead of the curve. You'll leave here with a copy of the Fall 2011 Apartment Report. This document contains extensive local and large city vacancy and rent information. It also features a variety of timely and brilliantly written articles on the local apartment scene. A lot of careful thought, not to mention generously donated time, has gone into this publication. Here are the headlines from the report. Before I reveal the actual statistics, let me ask you, by a show of hands, how many people would have expected that the vacancy rate would have declined in the last 6 months? Okay. How many thought the vacancy rate was headed up in the last 6 months? Okay. Actually, vacancy has now dropped again nearly 0.5%, from the already low spring rate of 3.76 to now a new 3.34 number. This is down from 4% a year ago. 5% is thought of as being healthy and in balance. Locally, average asking rent has grown 7.7% in the last year. Other smaller Oregon cities aren't faring quite as well. There are three main economic realities affecting the market. an extremely high and sticky unemployment rate of 9% locally and nationally with no signs of relief in sight, resulting in 80,000 fewer jobs locally from the peak in November 2007. That's a 7.6% drop in number of people actually working, and an anemic GDP growth, and a failed $800 billion national job stimulus with no new viable proposals in sight. With such negative news, why are we seeing such healthy vacancy and rent increase numbers? Here's some pressures I believe contribute to the positive local rental market. We have some imported demand for rental housing. Anecdotally, it is said that Portland has become the in place to hang out if you're looking for a job. Single-family foreclosures are at a record level. Natural growth in population continues. 10,000 new jobs were actually created last year, about 1% growth, and an absence of recent apartment development. So what's a reasonable local market forecast? Modest continuing job growth, hence modest household formation. Single-family foreclosures are expected to continue apace, further enlarging the prospective renter pool. Recycling of foreclosed single-family houses selling at deep discounts will drain a portion of the renter pool. Lenders will continue to be aggressively open for business, at least for developers and owners of multifamily housing. A resulting resurgence of apartment development is most likely. Expect there to be a Paul Revere-like clarion call, the developers are coming, the developers are coming. A word or two about developers and their role is in order. They have resurfaced, they are hungry, and are fiercely independent. They can and will produce until it hurts. While the rate of production is not a market killer yet, expect it at some point to pour cold water on the relatively aggressive rent increases and growing cash flows we have been enjoying of late. In summary, I see the skies darkening, but no storm clouds yet. There's still time. Are you prepared? As some of you know, I'm a property manager and an investor. As such, after 40 years in the business, I like to think I've seen it all, but I never lose my appetite for an interesting property management event. By the way, all of our work is not esoteric, cost-benefit analyses, internal rates of return, and whatnot. We do actually get down in the trenches from time to time. I thought I would give you a timely, real-world experience by letting you eavesdrop on a current lease renewal conversation about to take place at Lazy Acres Apartments. The property was just purchased and is about to undergo a top-to-bottom rehab. The leasing office is where the rubber meets the road, where income is preserved and generated, all in this one room. This is particularly instructive and timely given today's market. I have the leasing agent's permission, so come with me, we'll crack the door so you can listen in. Let's see how it goes. The names and events have been changed to protect the innocent. Leasing agent. Good morning, Mrs. McNice. I appreciate you taking time to come in and discuss your lease renewal. Mrs. McNice. Excuse me, honey, you're new, aren't you? My name is McCrank. Not sure where you got McNice. Leasing agent. Let me check. Oh, you know, you're right. You are Mrs. McCrank. I was reading a note in the margin saying Mrs. McCrank is actually nice. My mistake. You know, the office was a mess when I got here. I think I'm the 6th leasing agent in the 2 years since you moved in. The new manager promises to fix staff problems. If not, I'm out of here. Back to business. For your renewal, to show you how much we appreciate your loyalty, we want to take this occasion to offer you our honored resident retention package. As an inducement to sign your renewal, we're prepared to put in beautiful new white switch plates to replace the old almond ones. Those almond ones were so 90s. and we're proposing a nominal $55 rent increase to offset our rising cost of operations. I trust you'll find this offer competitive. By the way, how have they been treating you here at Lazy Acres? Resident, I thought you'd never ask. Actually, not so well. If you have a minute, I'll explain. When I moved in, they asked me to fill in a condition report on the apartment. You know, the stuff I didn't find acceptable. Let me tell you how this has been handled. There were three main issues. One, first, I had bent blinds in 2 rooms. They sent a guy in to fix them. I recall his rather unusual name, Irvin Sandblast. He brought his hammer and something resembling an anvil for tools, worked for an hour, beating the bent slats into submission. After seeing the condition worsen, finally I told him to just stop. The finished product looked like 20 miles of bad road. I simply learned to pull him up and not have him on display for the company. Nice as he was, Mr. Sandblast was a bit rough on the edges. Then there was the gas stove igniter problem. The igniter worked only sporadically since moving in. After several fix and fails, they finally sent Billy Bob, a specialist. He informed me that the stove was a 1977 model and they didn't make parts for it anymore. He confided that he had orders for budget reasons not to replace any stoves, so we settled on an alternative solution. He bought me a box of long stem wooden matches, the kind you know that they use to light tall candles in church. It's too bad because the gas stove was what attracted me to Lazy Acres in the first place. As you know and might expect, I've been a little slow in catching the lighting the match a few times. I can tell you I paid a price. See these eyebrows. And finally, there was the problem with nail holes in the wall. This is the one that took the cake. After mentioning this several times over the last 2 years, the painter finally got there a couple of weeks ago. Much to my amazement and amusement, upon arrival, the painter proudly pulled out his patching compound. Would you believe, a tube of toothpaste? Yes, Crest with whitener toothpaste, and proceeded to plug the holes. Afterwards, he stood there admiring how good the job came out. I guess we saw it differently, because while it did fill the holes, the color didn't match. Upon hearing my complaint, he explained that they changed the paint color a year ago, and I must have the old color. The old color was best matched with Colgate Cavity Fighter. He asked me to check and see if by chance that was the brand I used. Sure enough, it was, so he proceeded to borrow my tube and redo the job. And he didn't return the toothpaste. Such nerve. I think you can see why there's some hesitation in my jumping into another year's lease. So I hope you aren't surprised to learn that I did a little looking around the neighborhood and saw this new place being built down the street. I went in to inquire. In addition to being beautiful, here's what they offered. 3 months free rent if I signed up on the initial visit, while their rent is $250 a month higher than I'm paying now, $1,000 versus $750. The cost for the first year was actually the same. They gave me a paper showing the math to prove it. They guaranteed me a 24-hour response for non-emergency maintenance, or they would pay me $25. They offered to move me at their expense, and finally, they offered me a $500 referral fee if I brought in a new resident. So I signed and paid my deposit on the spot. Leasing agent response. I see. My, that's quite a package. I wasn't aware they were being so aggressive. If I were to cut the rent increase down to 50 from 55 and throw in a long-handled crypto-butane lighter, would you reconsider? Resident, no, probably not. I think I've made an irreversible decision. Resident relationships. Are yours favorable, and will they stand the test of the new market competition? We've had a couple of laughs at the expense of a leasing agent and a couple of maintenance guys. In reality, a team member failure is a management failure. Just remember, these folks were not self-employed and probably not self-taught. Perhaps we should rework the old exhortation from let the good times roll to don't get rolled by the good times. Thank you.
This is the Earth to World Broadcasting Network.